Do you think it's more important to have the validation of a man or a partner that you love and you trust and you admire and you respect? Or is it to have validation from others online who don't really know you, but that they constantly may flood you with this level of attention?
It would have to be like my individual partner. Definitely a couple of years ago that I cared about the external validation. So like caring about how many likes I get on a post, seeing like, how many people watch my stories, even out. Like if there is a night, depending on, the club or the bar or whatever that I would go to when I was in college, I'd be like, dang, like I didn't get no numbers. Like what is going on? Like, certain things like that.
What do you think is more important in your lived experience? And maybe you can add in the experience of maybe your homegirls or just your sister, women that you know. Do you think it's more important to have the validation of a man or a partner that you love and you trust and you admire and you respect? Or is it to have validation from others online who don't really know you, but that they constantly may flood you with this level of attention?
I think for me currently, it would have to be like my individual partner. Just because I feel as though like, who I've like, I always like just draw everything back to my relationship with my dad.
Sure.
Just because that is, something that I, really wanted from him. My dad is not a very emotional person as far as, showing that love and stuff like that. He's not that, he's really not that person. And so that's something that I've kind of noticed within myself. I'm not very like, lovey-dovey, I guess I would say.
Expressive?
Yes, exactly. I am not very expressive. Like I'm not a words of affirmation type person. Okay. I'm more so which ironically, one of my love languages is physical touch. Like I love quality time and physical touch. Like I love that. But like as far as actually being able to come up with the words and express it, that's not me. So that is something that I definitely seek in my romantic partners, just because it's not necessarily something that I'm used to and it's not something that I really had growing up. But I will say probably a couple of years ago, not even probably, definitely a couple of years ago, that I cared about the external validation. So like caring about how many likes I get on a post, seeing like, how many people watch my stories, even out. Like if there is a night, depending on, the club or the bar or whatever that I would go to when I was in college, I'd be like, dang, like I didn't get no numbers. Like what is going on? Like, certain things like that. And so I know that we're talking about social media and stuff like that, but yeah, I definitely would say a couple of years ago, that's something that was very, very important to me. And looking back on it, it's just, I feel as though that's kind of become one of the reasons why I've started to try to back away from it, more specifically like Instagram, just because, I have like a Twitter and stuff, but I don't really spend too much time on it. TikTok, I use it for like laughs or like, I joke with my friends, like TikTok is like my new Google now. If I'm like looking, if I need to look something up or figure something out. But Instagram is definitely where I used to seek like that crazy attention from like guys I would never give like a time of day, but just feeling that like, oh yeah, like I got these hard eyes, I got these likes, I got the, story reply, this, that, and the third, like that would make me feel good, even though I did not care about, whoever. I'm not saying I didn't care about anybody, but like I didn't really care who it was that would respond, just like the feeling that somebody is responding.
Sure.
That really used to do something for me. But I would say now that I'm older and my values have changed and developed and things like that, I would say now I care more so about my partner. Not to say like you know, sometimes, you know, that's why I took a social media break, because, you know, I found myself, you know, starting to kind of like slip back into like, okay, well, you know, let's see who watched my story, this, that, and the third, things like that. So yeah, I would say for the most part, it would have to be with like whoever. I would care about the validation from whoever my partner is.
As of now, but in the past,
it was
flipped.
Yes, it was definitely flipped.
Okay. Let me ask you a follow-up before I give you my thoughts on that. Do you think that because of that potential challenge and risk that there is, uniquely more so to women and to young women out there, do you think it's creating a distorted sense of reality or perception of reality for young women in terms of relationship building with men? Like, if you're used to getting so much validation from other men, maybe you have this sense of entitlement that there'll always kind of be a man for you, no matter what you do or who you are or how you present yourself to the world?
That is a very good question.
I try to ask good questions.
I would probably, honestly, I probably would say yeah. Just because I don't know. I think I would probably just say yes, just because like if you're so used to having like this certain type of attention or whatever, you know, you're always going to expect it. Like if it's something that has been pretty consistent throughout like all of your developmental years and things like that, you know, if something happens one day and that ends up, you know, not being the case anymore, I can imagine just how, you know, detrimental or whatever it may be to somebody's mental health. So I would say, for the most part, yes, but I don't know, I feel like it's kind of like a case by case situation too, because some people may be, you know, more grounded in themselves in the sense to like not necessarily depend on that. Does that make sense?
No, it does. But do you think, so let's try to put the outliers to the side. If you had to make more of a generalization, do you think that more women, more often than not, especially more younger women, I'm not saying older women don't too, but particularly more younger women, somewhere between, let's say 15 to 27, do you think that there's a possibility that they are developing a sense of entitlement in terms of the validation that they have been getting maybe for a period of time, and when they're ready, this is the key word, when they're ready to be in a serious relationship, thinking that those options that maybe that they had previously in terms of the attention that they had, that it will always be there, the type of man that they would want, not, to your point, not just getting attention from guys that you would never give the time of day to your point, but the guy that you would actually want when you're ready to settle down, maybe you're ready to have that family, you're ready to have those kids. Do you think that it's creating sort of a distorted perception that it doesn't matter whenever I'm ready to settle down, when I'm ready, he will be there?
I would probably say yes. And I feel like it's because of the things that we are being fed as far as just the cult. I'm trying to figure out the safest way to say this.
Okay. We're allowed to make mistakes, by the way, so please don't attack anybody just because we might misspeak.
Yeah. I think with the way, and reel me back in if this is like off, like not necessarily exactly how it's supposed to be answered, because I know like either way, if I go off the tangent, just reel me back in. So I feel as though the way that our culture is now, with, you know, certain celebrities, influencers, things like that.
Platforms, maybe?
Yes, platforms. People who have certain platforms. I feel as though they have sold a lot of us. So if we're talking about like from 15 to 27, we're talking about the young teenagers, young adults or whatever, who are seeing these people now, and then also the people who may have grown up on different versions of the kind of celebrities and people that we have now, but are also still very like that also still like pay a lot of attention to these types of people.
Correct.
I think that they have kind of not emphasis on some, not all, but I feel as though it's kind of distorted some of their, I don't want to say like realities, but perceptions. So when you talk about entitlement, I feel as though a lot of people feel as though they are entitled, like you said, to a certain type of person just because they have been, you know, this may be like what they're used to, although they may not. How should I say this? And if I'm not answering the question, just let me know.
You are.
Okay.
You're following the track.
And so they're a lot, and you know, I will say, I feel like this goes both ways. I feel like a lot of men are like this as well now. But I feel as though like they may not bring to the table what they want their partner necessarily to bring, but because of the, you know, certain ideologies and things that, you know, are being put into a lot of people's minds nowadays, they feel as though that's something that they deserve when they're not necessarily even, I don't want to say worthy. I don't know what other
maybe they haven't put in the work necessary to have earned that.
Yes, exactly. So I say all that to say, yes, there is a sense of entitlement, but I feel like it has a lot to do with the stuff that we are being fed as far as media and things like that. Does that answer the question?
No, you're definitely on those lines, and I know, and I appreciate you trying to answer it. It's a very nuanced discussion, right? So I'm not, just to reiterate for anybody who may try to mischaracterize me, I'm very much pro women and pro them being able to be their most authentic versions of themselves, to be able to take care of themselves, to be able to be self-sufficient, to be able to be highly educated. I support all of that. So there's no MO of me trying to make this point. But the reason why I bring it up is because, particularly when it comes to relationship building, right, from the man side. So we know that historically in heterosexual relationships, men are the pursuers, meaning women get the first chance to reject, right? What I'm seeing and what I'm hearing from a lot of creators, a lot of young men, older men, middle-aged men that have their stuff together, men that are early on in the process, and young men that are scared of the prospects of the future, that it's getting harder for people to link together. It's getting harder for people to have reasonable expectations that in the past wasn't quite so difficult to understand.
Yeah.
I do think social media might have played a significant role in that, because of what you were just talking about, with the level of attention that a lot of young ladies can get through platforms like Instagram and TikTok and OnlyFans, you know, to be fair. And so it's not simply to say one or the other, like that inherently makes it bad and we should shut it down. Like I understand that there can be great uses for those platforms, so I'm not anti them, but I want us to understand how it might be, again, to your words there, kind of distorting our perception. Because if I have this idea that I have unlimited time, I'm going to go back to a comment you mentioned quite some time ago about I'm getting a little bit older, I'm trying to be mindful of my time, I want to make sure I can make something happen, right? When I hear you say that, I hear more intentionality behind those words. Meaning, I don't want to spend more of my time kind of hoping that something's going to happen. I need to put some stuff into motion to increase the likelihood that it's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And intentionality to me is the key word there. On the flip side, if I'm used to getting all this attention, which again, to be fair, the vast majority of men do not know what that feels like. The vast majority of us will never know what that feels like, because that is just a disparity between men and women. Women are the ones pursued, men are typically the pursuers for heterosexual relationships. So if that's the way the paradigm has sort of shifted now, where now you can get flooded and inundated with all of this extra attention, it can lead maybe one to think this will never end. I will always have access to this plethora of individuals and these options and these opportunities, even if it's from individuals that I don't truly desire, right? Yeah. The question I would ask, actually there's twofold, and you don't necessarily have to answer them, but these are the questions I've asked, and I've had some of my female clients ask me these questions. The men that I want, what do they want? which I think a lot of times we're not thinking about that. Because again, women don't typically, I think, have to think about what we want because we're the ones that come for you. So the guys that I want to take serious, what do they want from a partner? What are they looking for, right? And then on the flip side, for the ones that I'm kind of dabbling in social media, dabbling in these platforms, what have you, what might be the potential risk and impact the longer I'm on these platforms and the way that I present myself to the world in terms of my dating options? So what I mean by that is saying like this. Let me give you an example of what something me and one of my old clients had discussed. So she was very much like in your age demographic, and she was talking about how she knew that she wanted to be married in the next like 4 to 5 years. She was still getting ready to go to grad school, but that's something that she knew very consciously she wanted, and also wanted to have children. So one day we were discussing, and she brought up and wanted me to review her Instagram profile. And I don't typically I don't stalk my clients. It's just like she brought it up. She wanted me to look at it. I was like, okay. And she wanted my feedback from a man's perspective. Like, how do I come across, right? And one thing I immediately recognized that I think, again, it's just maybe slightly different from men and women, is that there's like somewhat of a dissociation, meaning there's not a connection between how I portray myself online and who I am in real life. I think there's some women out there who think that like they're two different people. And for us as men, you're the same person. Whatever you put out there on your public platform is how we're judging you.
Yeah.
Because this is how you're demonstrating who you are to the world, right? And so I'm not going to get into all her details, but the point was she had some photos that I looked at and I said, hey, this is what I would tell you. If I was you and I'm saying I'm a woman that wants to be taken seriously by a man who wants to commit to me and give me want to be my husband one day, it matters how I portray myself on these public platforms. It matters how I conduct myself. It matters how I carry myself. So I pointed out some things and I said, if I was you, based on what you said you want, I would change these things. I would probably remove them. Because I think it's not going to make a man want to take you serious based on how you're choosing to portray yourself here.